At my housewarming, my sister walked in, glanced around, and said, "This $1 million house has plenty of space for me and the kids." Then Mom looked at me and said, "Be a good brother, let her stay." I just smiled, pulled out my phone, and said, "Remember when you kicked me out at 19? I bought this house with the bonus I got after leaving all of you behind." You know that feeling? When you've poured your entire soul into building a life, only for the people who once cast you aside to walk in and try to steal it all. That's when I learned family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's a brutal battlefield. For 13 years, I worked tirelessly to bury the Aaron my family used to mock. The quiet one. The weird one. The boy who would never make it because I dared to carve my own path. Growing up, I was just the middle child. Sandwiched between my older brother, Jake, the golden boy, football scholarship, later joined Dad's real estate, and my younger sister, Vanessa. Oh, Vanessa. She could wreck the family car and somehow still get a hug, "You're just stressed, sweetheart," from Mom. Me? I just wanted to be left alone. I liked my computers. I liked the quiet. But quiet didn't fly in our house. Mom just didn't get me. Dad barely saw me. And Vanessa? She treated me like her personal gopher until I finally snapped. I was 19. I'd just finished my first year of community college, and I'd landed an internship at a small tech startup. I was buzzing. Truly buzzing. You know that feeling when you finally have something of your own, something that makes you feel like you're actually becoming someone? That was it. I can still see myself walking into the kitchen that night, clutching that offer letter. Vanessa was sprawled on the couch, half-eaten sandwich in hand, whining about her boyfriend. I burst out with the news, how I beat out 3 university grads, how I'd be building real products. Mom just looked up from the sink. Barely a flicker of interest. "Is it paid?" she asked, flat as a pancake. It wasn't, I admitted, but explained it was temporary, a stepping stone. "Well, we're not paying for your gas just so you can go play computer games," she snapped. Dad didn't even lower his newspaper. "Waste of time," he muttered. "Get a real job." That was it. The knife twist. The beginning of the end. I tried to make it work. I took evening shifts at a grocery store, biked 5 miles each way. Vanessa still tossed me her laundry, demanded I fix her laptop, called me names when I refused. But I believed in that internship. I truly believed it would take me somewhere. Then one Friday night, I came home to find my life packed into boxes in the living room. I stared, thinking it was some kind of cruel joke. "What's going on, Mom?" I asked. She didn't even flinch. "You're leaving," she said, as if she were listing groceries. "You're a grown man now. Time to stop mooching. We need the space for Vanessa's baby." Vanessa's baby? That was the first I'd heard my sister was even pregnant. I looked at Dad, absolutely floored. "Seriously, you've had your chance," he said, his voice colder than ice. "We supported your silly dreams long enough. It's time to grow up." That night, I slept in my car. I crashed on friends' couches, showered at gyms, ate cheap burgers. But I never quit. Not once. I kept showing up to that unpaid internship. Eventually, that company secured its first major funding round. And they offered me a job. A real job. Nothing glamorous, just back-end development. But I clutched it like it was pure gold. The years that followed? They weren't easy. I worked like a machine. No vacations, no weekends, just relentless grind. Every bonus went straight into savings. Every raise reinvested in myself, learning, building, networking. I moved cities, changed my number, and never once looked back. By 29, I was at a major tech firm in San Francisco, building security infrastructure. At 30, I co-founded a startup. And within 18 months, we were acquired for just under $40 million. After taxes and equity splits, I walked away with a little over $2 million. And no, I didn't throw a lavish party. I didn't post it all over social media. I just exhaled. I bought a house in the Bay Area. A sleek, modern, 4-bedroom dream, all glass walls, a rooftop deck, a view of the entire city. It cost just over $1 million. But to me, it wasn't just a house. It was closure. It was undeniable proof that the kid they'd thrown out like trash had done more than just fine without them. Then came my biggest mistake. I invited them to the housewarming. Why? I still don't know. Maybe a sliver of residual guilt or a desperate curiosity. I hadn't spoken to any of them in years, not since Vanessa sent a blurry photo of her kid, casually captioned, "Just in case you want to know your nephew." I'd ignored it. But a foolish part of me hoped they'd changed. Maybe, just maybe, they'd offer a simple, "We were wrong." I didn't expect tears, just a human acknowledgement. Instead, Vanessa swept through my front door, heels too high for my polished floors, dragging two screaming kids behind her like she owned the place. She didn't even say hello. Just a fake little smirk and, wow, this $1 million house has plenty of room for me and the kids. I just stared. What? I managed. She gestured to Mom, who was already making herself at home in my kitchen. "Well, you invited us and you've got all this space. We thought we'd stay for a bit, until I can find a place." My jaw must have been on the floor. Then Mom looked at me, that same patronizing tone I remembered so painfully. "Be a good brother, Aaron. Let her stay. She's been through a lot." I stood there frozen, stunned by the sheer, casual entitlement. Like this was normal. Like I owed them everything. As if the years of silence, the abandonment, the desperate struggle meant absolutely nothing. As if I was still that quiet middle child, desperate for scraps of approval. And that's when it happened. I smiled. I pulled out my phone, found the deed, and said it slowly, making sure every word landed like a brick. "Remember when you threw me out at 19? I bought this house with the bonus I got after leaving all of you behind." The room went dead silent. Vanessa's face tightened. Mom just blinked. The kids were still whining, but I barely registered it. Just as I thought they might try to backtrack or laugh it off, Dad walked in. He surveyed the space, then his eyes locked on mine. "Nice place," he said. I nodded. "You did all right." Not a compliment. An assessment. As if he was already calculating its worth, what he could extract. In that moment, I knew. They weren't here to celebrate with me. They were here because they thought they still had a claim. They thought I still belonged to them. And that right there was the true beginning of the story. I didn't kick them out right then. Looking back, I still can't explain why. Maybe I needed to see just how far they'd truly go. Maybe I needed undeniable proof, something so grotesquely clear that even I couldn't make excuses for them anymore. Or maybe, just maybe, a stubborn part of me still hoped they'd eventually realize their own behavior and apologize. Instead, things escalated. Fast. Vanessa immediately started acting like she owned the place. "The kids can take that room," she declared, pointing at my guest suite, the one with the ensuite bathroom and a view of the hills. "And I'll take the one across from it. I need to be close to them at night." Then, as if she were doing me a favor, she added, "Oh, we won't be here long. Just a few weeks. 2 months tops." I didn't say a word. I just watched her unpack bags and bags, like she was on a luxurious vacation. Her kids were already tracking mud across my pristine floor. She didn't ask to stay. She announced it. She claimed it. Meanwhile, Mom had found the expensive wine I'd bought for the party and was pouring herself a glass without a single "may I." "You always had expensive taste," she said, swirling it like some self-proclaimed connoisseur. "Maybe now that you've done so well, you'll understand how hard it was raising 3 kids." "For what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She blinked, confused. "You forgot, David," I added. "My youngest brother. The one who overdosed at 17 and whom they never spoke of again. Not at the funeral. Not in therapy. Not once." She made a face like I'd just pointed out a spider crawling on her arm. "That was a long time ago. No need to dredge up the past." I just stared, wondering if she even heard how sickeningly twisted that sounded. Dad, of course, skipped the pleasantries. He was already surveying my backyard like it was a potential property listing. "You should put in a pool," he barked. "Really ups the resale value. And that shed? Tear it down. Looks cheap." I finally just asked, "Why are you really here?" He turned, flashing that fake salesman smile. "Family should stick together. Especially now that you're successful." There it was. Not even a shred of subtlety. That night, they stayed. Every bone in my body screamed at me to end it, to kick them out, but I didn't. I watched Vanessa set up her kid's iPad in my living room, volume blasting. I listened as Mom criticized my furniture, calling it too modern and too sterile. I even endured Dad asking if I'd considered letting him handle my finances because real estate is always safer than those tech stocks. They hadn't come to visit me. They'd come to move in. By the second day, the subtle manipulation began. Vanessa came to my home office, knocking softly, playing the concerned sister card. "I know this is a lot, Aaron," she started, all sweet and innocent. "But I really need your help. Child support's a nightmare. Daycare costs are insane. If I could just stay a few more months, I promise, I'll get back on my feet." I asked her what she was actually doing to get back on her feet. She blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Well, I'm taking time for my mental health right now. It's been really hard." "You've been posting spa selfies on Instagram all week," I said, flatly. Her face twisted instantly. "Wow. So that's how you see me?" "No, Vanessa," I leaned back in my chair. "That's how the entire internet sees you." She stormed off. 5 minutes later, Mom was in my office. "You really need to learn empathy," she lectured. "She's your sister. Those kids are your family. What happened to you?" "What happened?" I repeated. "You kicked me out. You didn't talk to me for years." "That's not fair," she said. "We were trying to teach you responsibility. You taught me survival," I shot back. "And I learned it without you." She scoffed and left. Dinner that night was a frozen wasteland. Vanessa refused to meet my eyes. Mom picked apart everything I cooked. The kids screamed through half the meal, throwing food everywhere. Then Dad pulled me aside, in his classic, let's talk man-to-man voice. "I know this is overwhelming," he began. "But you're in a position to help. It's what good sons do. You can afford it. Why not let us stay for a while? You've got plenty of space." "I'm not a hotel," I said. "Then stop acting like a stranger," he shot back. That was the moment it clicked. They weren't just entitled. They were playing a game they believed they'd already won. They were used to getting their way. Vanessa always had someone cleaning up her messes. Mom always guilt-tripped her way through any conflict. And Dad? He'd always made it clear that love was conditional, earned only through obedience. And now, they thought I was still that same desperate, approval-seeking kid from 13 years ago. So I stopped arguing. I stopped pushing back. I let them think they'd won. Let them unpack every single thing. Let Vanessa fill the fridge with her oat milk and overpriced snacks. Let Mom rearrange my spice rack for efficiency. Let Dad make business calls from my backyard like it was his personal office. All while I quietly collected every receipt, every text, every video clip, every audio recording. Because if they were going to try and stake a legal claim to my house, they were going to do it while I meticulously built my case. And trust me, what I had planned next, they wouldn't see it coming. It all exploded exactly 12 days after they arrived. By then, they were fully entrenched, like squatters who'd been handed the keys. Vanessa was having groceries delivered to my address and charging them straight to my account, a $174 Whole Foods order I definitely didn't place. My father had convinced a neighbor he owned the house, dishing out advice to the HOA like some wise community elder. And Mom, in her usual passive-aggressive style, used every quiet moment to remind me I'd be alone forever if I didn't start acting more normal. The manipulation wasn't subtle anymore. It was a constant, suffocating hum, as if their delusion had infected the very walls of my home. I was working in my office that Monday morning when I heard a knock. Figuring it was a package, I ignored it. Minutes later, unfamiliar voices. I walked out to find 2 men in gray polos talking to my mother. One turned to me. "Hi, are you the homeowner?" I nodded slowly, a knot of caution tightening in my stomach. "We're from Everlux Home Staging. We received a call to take measurements for an upcoming listing." I blinked. "Listing?" He double-checked his clipboard. "Yes, we were told the property is going on the market next month." I looked at Mom. Her face was stiff. "Excuse me?" I asked, my voice sharper now. "Who scheduled you?" Let me check," he said, flipping through his notes. "Vanessa Trent. She said she was handling the listing paperwork." I swear the air just got sucked out of the room. Vanessa strolled in from the kitchen, sipping coffee like she didn't have a single care in the world. "Oh," she said casually. "I was going to tell you. We're putting the house on the market." We. I stammered, completely stunned. "Well, you work all the time," she said in that sickeningly sweet, mocking tone she used as a teenager. "You barely use the house." And Mom and Dad agreed. "You'd be better off downsizing, getting a little condo closer to the city. This place is too much for you anyway." My jaw actually dropped. "Are you out of your mind?" "It's what's best for everyone," Mom chimed in, trying to sound gentle, like she was patiently guiding a toddler. "You're overextended. You're not married. You don't need all this space. Vanessa needs stability, and this house is perfect for the kids." I took a step back, a disbelieving laugh escaping me. "This isn't some shared inheritance. I bought this house with my money. My name is the only one on the deed." Dad appeared behind them, leaning on the wall, arms crossed, looking like some low-rent mafia boss. "You're being dramatic," he said. "It's just a house. If it helps the family, then that's what matters. And if it bankrupts me?" I demanded. "What then?" "You won't go bankrupt," he shrugged. "You're smart. You'll bounce back." I looked at Vanessa. "And what exactly do you get out of this?" She didn't even blink. "The house goes on the market. I get the proceeds to buy a new place for me and the kids. And you get, well, peace of mind. Honestly, it's a win-win." Something inside me just cracked. Not anger. Something far deeper. Like a final, frayed string snapping after years of holding on too tightly to a hope I should have abandoned long ago. "You really think you can just sell my house?" I asked slowly, the words foreign and bitter on my tongue. "I already called a realtor," she said. "She's coming by tomorrow to take pictures." "You're trespassing," I said. "We're family." Mom snapped. "We have every right to be here." That was it. I walked into the kitchen, silent, grabbed my phone, and opened my security system app. I'd installed those cameras quietly, just after they'd moved in. 2 inside, 1 in the front yard, 1 covering the garage. I tapped the folder labeled Incidents and sent myself 5 choice clips. I didn't tell them what I'd done. I didn't need to. But later that afternoon, my bank called. Someone had tried to access my mortgage account online. Incorrect password entries triggered a fraud alert. The rep asked if I knew of Vanessa Trent. I thanked him and hung up. That night, I sat at the dinner table in silence, barely touching my food. My family chatted away like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just tried to sell my home out from under me, like they hadn't just committed outright fraud. Then Vanessa looked up from her phone and smiled, sickeningly sweet. "I was thinking," she said, "we could paint the walls in the living room before the photographer comes. Maybe brighten it up a bit." I looked at her, then at my mother, then my father, and I finally understood. They didn't see me as a person. I was a resource. A stepping stone. A means to an end. But what they didn't know is that I wasn't trapped with them. They were trapped with me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, though I'd be lying if I said a part of me wasn't, but because something fundamental had shifted inside me. The house, which I'd envisioned as a symbol of freedom, the tangible reward for all my grit, now felt like a suffocating cage. Every corner echoed with their footsteps, their incessant voices, their complete and utter disregard for me. I sat on the edge of my bed for hours, staring into the darkness, replaying every cutting word from that day. "We're putting the house on the market. We have every right to be here. You get peace of mind." I felt like a stranger, a guest in my own home. The next morning, I woke to screaming. Vanessa's oldest had spilled orange juice on the living room rug, the rug I'd bought with my first real paycheck, the one I'd kept pristine for years. And she was absolutely berating the poor kid like he'd shattered a priceless heirloom. I stepped out to see the stains soaking through the fibers. Vanessa was using one of my bath towels to clean it. "Maybe don't buy white rugs if you plan on having family over," she snapped, without even glancing at me. I said nothing. I just turned, walked back into my room, and closed the door. That was the exact moment. I was done playing defense. But before I could act, things got worse. 2 days later, I came home from a long day at the office. I'd started spending more time there just to avoid them, to find my home office completely rearranged. My triple monitor setup was unplugged, my work documents shoved into a random drawer. In their place? A foldable crib. Vanessa walked in right behind me, like she'd been waiting for my reaction. "The baby's been fussy," she explained. "He needs a quiet space to nap during the day. The living room is too noisy." "You turned my office into a nursery?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, heat building behind my eyes. "You can work in your room," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "You've got that little desk by the window, right? You went through my things." "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed. "It's my house, too, now. We all need to make adjustments." I couldn't speak. I genuinely couldn't. I just walked into the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the toilet lid, and stared at the tile. My hands were shaking. I wasn't sure if I was going to cry, scream, or just collapse. Instead, I pulled out my phone. And I began making a list. A quiet, methodical, devastating list. Every single act of entitlement I'd endured since they arrived. Every lie. Every overreach. The Whole Foods charges, the realtor, the attempted mortgage login, the office takeover, the attempted sale of my house. Then I started documenting things in real time. I hid an AirTag inside the living room lamp, so I'd know if anything of mine was moved without explanation. I enabled 24/7 backup for all interior cameras. I recorded every single conversation on my phone, even the ones that felt harmless. I wanted everything cataloged. Not for them. For me. For the part of me that still needed proof this wasn't all just in my head. Because deep down, some stubborn, foolish part of me still wanted to believe that maybe I had misunderstood, that maybe I was exaggerating, that maybe somehow there was still something salvageable in this family. That last illusion shattered completely about a week later. It was 11:30 p.m. I'd just come back from a walk, needed some air, some quiet. When I stepped into the house, I heard Vanessa on the phone in the kitchen, laughing. "Yeah, girl," she was saying. "He's such a loser. Can you believe he actually let us stay here? Like, for free? I swear he's always been like this. So desperate for love. He'll put up with anything." She laughed again, a harsh, dismissive sound. "I give it 2 more months. We'll get that down payment. He'll fold. He always does." I froze. Not because of what she said. I'd already guessed it. But because of how she said it. The ease. The cold certainty. Like it wasn't just a plan, it was a pattern. One she'd run before. And I realized she truly believed I'd never fight back. Not her. Not Mom. Not Dad. They thought the boy they'd kicked out at 19 was still here. That the man I'd become, the one who survived, rebuilt, and thrived, was just a temporary disguise. That deep down, I was still waiting for their approval. Still clinging to the scraps they tossed me. They were catastrophically wrong. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I took the next day off work and drove 2 hours out of the city to a secluded spot by the coast, a place I used to visit in college. A rocky overlook with a single bench and no cell signal. I sat there for a long, long time, just breathing, letting the toxic noise drain out of me. And when I got back into my car, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Not for a fight. For freedom. Because I wasn't going to scream or slam doors or demand respect. I was going to take back everything they stole, quietly, legally, and permanently. And when it was done, I'd vanish again. But this time, they'd feel the absence. I returned home that evening with a strange calm, a peace I hadn't felt in years. Everything was crystal clear. No more confusion, no more exhausting mental tug-of-war about whether I owed them anything, or if I was overreacting. The suffocating fog had finally lifted. And once I truly made peace with that, every piece of the puzzle started clicking into place. The first step was subtle. I rekeyed the garage door access code. Then I removed every one of them from the security app. No announcement. No confrontation. Just a quiet, firm boundary. That same night, I called my lawyer. I hadn't spoken to her since the startup acquisition, but she'd always told me to reach out if the past ever tries to come knocking. Well, I said, half joking, they're not just knocking anymore. They've moved in, stolen my favorite chair, and are actively trying to sell my house. She didn't laugh. Instead, she gave me a meticulous to-do list. One by one, I started checking things off. I filed formal trespassing warnings with the city. Even though I'd initially let them in, their continued stay, especially with the attempted home sale, now qualified as unlawful occupancy. I froze all shared accounts and credit cards, opened new ones with biometric ID requirements, and hired a private security consultant to install a discreet, tamper-proof lock system on my bedroom door that would trigger an immediate alert. I even hired a financial investigator, not for me, but for Vanessa. I needed to know exactly where her money was going, how she was funding her online shopping binges, and if anything could legally come back to bite me. Turns out she had multiple payday loan defaults and a minor pending fraud charge in another state. Not exactly a smoking gun, but enough to prove she wasn't just irresponsible, she was dangerous. Meanwhile, at work, my career was leveling up. A feature I'd quietly developed over the past year suddenly caught the CTO's attention. It became the cornerstone of our new partnership with a global cybersecurity firm. My name was added to the press release. Bonuses rolled in. Stock options spiked. For the first time in months, I actually started looking forward to waking up. I got invited to speak at an industry panel in Chicago. I agreed. Vanessa didn't even blink when I told her I'd be gone for a weekend. "Bring me back something cute," she said, without missing a beat. A candle or a blanket or whatever they sell in those airport stores. While I was gone, I had a trusted colleague from work house sit for me, Daniel, a quiet, brilliant systems engineer who loathed drama and loved dogs. I knew he wouldn't tolerate any nonsense. He texted me twice during the trip. Once to say Vanessa asked him to babysit her kids. He refused. The second time, he told me she tried to get into my office again. He'd bolted the door shut. I thanked him, promising a week of free coffee on me. When I returned, something else was waiting for me. Something I hadn't even anticipated, an offer. A rival tech firm in Seattle, having heard about the panel, reached out. They wanted me as their new head of information security. It came with a hefty signing bonus, a full relocation package, and, crucially, executive-level housing assistance. I could buy another home up north and keep this one as a rental property. I hadn't even applied. They came to me. The power dynamic had shifted. Quietly. Completely. They still thought I was trapped with them. But now? I had all the leverage. And I was going to use it. Not to lash out. Not to get even. But to walk away clean. Because while they were busy playing house, I was building an exit so pristine, so airtight, so irreversible that by the time they realized what had happened, the locks would have changed, the lights would be off, and I'd be long, long gone. But first, one last move. Not petty. Not loud. Just devastatingly precise. A week after Chicago, a strange calm settled over the house. Vanessa must have sensed a shift. Maybe it was how I stopped reacting to her passive-aggressive jabs, or how I no longer argued when she left her dirty dishes in the sink. Or maybe it was just the eerie quiet. That's the ironic thing about people like her. They can smell change, but they always misread its source. She thought I was giving up. In truth, I was meticulously gathering the last puzzle pieces. The Seattle offer still sat untouched in my inbox, not because I wasn't interested, but because I was preparing to leverage it. Before I officially accepted, I needed to tie up every single loose end. That meant bulletproofing everything. My legal standing, my finances, my ownership, and most importantly, my narrative. And that's when I learned something that truly changed everything. It started with a simple call to my HOA, just an inquiry to ensure I could rent out the property if I moved. The woman on the other end, Marlene, was sweet but surprisingly chatty. When I mentioned my family was staying temporarily, she chuckled. "Oh yes," she said, "your parents and sister already introduced themselves at the last board meeting." I froze. "Board meeting?" "Oh yes," she chirped. "It was a few days after your housewarming. They said you were traveling a lot, and they were just helping manage the property." My throat went bone dry. What exactly did they say? Marlene, a saint, pulled up the notes. Vanessa filed a request for a temporary variance on occupancy limits. said it was for extended family cohabitation. Your parents backed her up. Small discussion about property usage, but since your name is on the deed, the board just assumed everything was fine. I thanked her, hung up. Then I pulled up the HA's online portal. And there it was, a PDF uploaded 3 weeks ago. Temporary Family Occupancy Addendum. Digitally signed with my name. Only, I hadn't signed it. Not electronically. Not in ink. It was forged. And suddenly, all those little red flags from the past few weeks didn't just light up, they screamed. The bank login attempts. The calls from the home stagers. The casual questions about my work travel. They hadn't just been trying to freeload. They were actively laying the groundwork to claim my house legally if I had died suddenly or been incapacitated. They might have tried to argue shared ownership or caretaker rights. It sounded absurd, like something out of a bad movie, but stranger things had happened in probate court, and Vanessa was always crafty in just the wrong ways. I emailed the document to my lawyer. Her response came within minutes. This is actionable. I'm contacting a forensic document expert and preparing a civil claim for fraud and identity misrepresentation. Now I had a cannon. I also had something else, leverage. Vanessa had a pending court appearance for her other fraud charge, and any new accusations, especially ones involving forged legal documents, could obliterate her bail agreement. One call, and she wouldn't be on my couch watching daytime reality shows. She'd be in jail. But I wasn't going to call yet. Not until everything was perfectly ready. I began orchestrating the final phase. I hired my own realtor and scheduled a private showing of the house under a shell LLC I'd just formed. The company would appear to be purchasing the house, but in reality, I'd still own it, just through a legal veil. If anyone tried to pull anything later, they'd be going after an entity, not me personally. Next, I contacted the Seattle company and accepted their offer. They were ecstatic. I asked for a start date 2 months out, enough time to finalize everything here and ensure my revenge unfolded exactly as I'd envisioned. Then I reached out to a local property manager, someone strict. We met for coffee. I laid everything out, the fake signatures, the freeloading family, the attempted sale. I told him exactly what I wanted, long-term rental management with a zero-tolerance policy. I didn't want to worry about this place once I left. He agreed. Even offered to be present when the house was formally vacated. And finally, my favorite part. I had copies made of the document Vanessa forged, of her voice recorded on camera admitting the sale plan, of the charges filed against her in her previous case. And I printed a neat little packet with a cover page that simply read, "My house. My name. My rules." It wasn't meant to scare them. It was meant to be the last thing they saw before the locks changed. Because now the plan was ready. The fuse was lit. All I had to do was watch it burn. The morning it all began, the house was utterly still. Not quiet, but that eerie, pregnant calm right before a storm, where every creak of the floorboards feels deliberate. I woke early, showered, brewed my coffee, and stood at the kitchen island like it was just another Monday. Vanessa's kids were still asleep on the pull-out sofa. My parents were upstairs in the guest rooms they'd already unofficially claimed. Vanessa was at the dining table, already scrolling through her phone, one leg propped up on a chair like she owned the entire place. "You're up early," she mumbled without looking at me. I just smiled. "Yeah, just figured I'd enjoy the silence while it lasts." She grunted, returning to whatever doom scroll she was on. She had no idea. No idea it was her last morning in my home. At precisely 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. 3 people stood there. One was Greg, my property manager, clipboard in hand, looking every bit the no-nonsense enforcer I needed. The second was Janine, a legal representative from my attorney's office, with a thin, folded folder tucked under her arm. The third was Mark, a uniformed locksmith. I opened the door casually, right on schedule. Vanessa appeared behind me, immediately suspicious. "Who are they?" Greg stepped forward. "Property inspection. We're here to walk through the premises before the new tenants arrive." Vanessa blinked. "New tenants?" I turned to her, keeping my voice utterly level. "Right. I sold the house last week. The silence that followed was so thick, I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. "You what?" she hissed. "I sold it," I repeated, as calmly as someone commenting on the weather. "Well, technically, I transferred it to a holding company I control. But as far as public records go, this house is no longer owned by me. It's managed by Everwatch Holdings, LLC. Her eyes flicked to Greg, then back to me. "That's not legal. You can't just. This is our home." I reached under the counter and pulled out the packet I'd prepped. I placed it gently on the counter in front of her. She flipped through the first few pages. Her face drained of all color when she reached the scanned HOA filing, the one she'd forged my name on. "I never." "You did," I cut her off. "And I have proof. IP logs, timestamps, audio of you bragging about it to your friend Tara, who, by the way, has zero chill and posted part of that phone call on her story." She swallowed hard. Mom came downstairs then, rubbing her eyes. "What's all this noise about?" Greg stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm with the new property manager for Everwatch Holdings. This house is no longer available for personal occupancy. You are being formally notified to vacate the premises within 24 hours. Refusal to comply will result in an unlawful detainer action being filed." "Excuse me," she barked. "This is our son's house." I turned toward her. "Correction, it was my house. Now it's company property, and you're trespassing." Dad followed her down, grumbling. "What's going on?" "I sold the house," I said again. "And you all need to leave." He looked around, confused, then absolutely furious. "You ungrateful little." Janine stepped forward, opening her folder. "Sir, before you say anything else, I'm serving you and your family members a cease and desist order regarding fraudulent representation of property ownership. We've also filed preliminary charges for document forgery and impersonation with the local precinct. You're advised to speak to an attorney." What? "He's our son." Mom exploded. "You're squatters," Greg replied, flipping through his clipboard. "And under the law, your relationship doesn't grant you immunity. You weren't on the lease. You weren't given express long-term residency. And you tried to sell a home that wasn't yours." Vanessa was pacing now, a frantic, cornered animal. "Where are we supposed to go? What about the kids?" "I don't know," I said, my voice flat. "You should have thought of that before trying to steal my life out from under me." Mark the locksmith stepped in behind them. "Sir, I can begin changing the locks now or wait until they've cleared out." "Begin," I said. That was the precise moment the chaos truly erupted. Vanessa started screaming at her kids to pack everything. My mother sobbed on the stairs, wailing about how heartless I'd become. My father stood there, stiffly, arms folded, utterly unable to comprehend that he wasn't in charge for once. The woman who'd once scoffed at my dream job was now literally begging me not to ruin her daughter's life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just stepped outside, stood on the porch, and let the locksmith work. Within 2 hours, they were gone. Bags hastily packed, kids wailing, my parents fuming. Vanessa tried one last time as she loaded her kids into her car. "We're family," she whispered, her voice raw. "You'll regret this." I walked over to her window, leaned down, and said, "I already did. For 19 years. Then I turned, walked back into my house, and closed the door. The weeks that followed were, in a single word, blissfully quiet. And I savored every single second. Vanessa, predictably, tried to retaliate. She unleashed vague, furious rants on social media about evil brothers who forget their blood, portraying herself as the tragic single mom abandoned by her selfish family. She even launched a GoFundMe, claiming she and her children were suddenly homeless because of a selfish tech bro it limped along, raising a grand total of $62 before someone, bless their heart, commented with a link to public court documents, including her pending fraud charge and the cease and desist order I'd filed against her. The post vanished by morning. Mom called once. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail, crying, wailing about how I'd ripped the family apart. I played it once. Then I deleted it. I knew she didn't mean the words, she only mourned the loss of control. Dad? He never reached out. Predictably. He simply didn't know how to exist without authority, and since I'd systematically removed every trace of his power, he just disappeared. 3 months later, I moved into my new place in Seattle. A high-rise corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the stunning Sound. I kept the Bay Area house under Everwatch Holdings and rented it out to a wonderful couple, newlyweds with 2 dogs and absolutely zero sense of entitlement. They send me holiday cards now. At work, my title officially changed. Head of security became chief of security. My team doubled. My income did too. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for my success or shrink myself so others wouldn't feel small. I finally understood something most people never learn. Family is not defined by blood. It's defined by choice, by boundaries, by respect. And as for Vanessa? She took a plea deal on the fraud charge in her home state, community service, a year of probation, and mandatory financial counseling. I heard she's living in a small apartment now with her kids, barely scraping by. It's not what I wanted for her. I never wanted to ruin her life. I just wanted her out of mine. And I got exactly that. One evening, as the Seattle sky turned brilliant gold behind the towering buildings, I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee, reflecting on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the manipulation, the wasted years I'd spent trying to prove I was enough. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hope you're happy. We lost everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I smiled, turned off my phone, and whispered to the wind, no. I finally found everything I needed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more crazy Reddit tales, and ring the bell so you never miss the next one. And hey, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you would have done in this situation.